Chapter 17, A Pack of Hounds. Why you should never trust a single hound that looks alone in the backrooms. I walked in silence, surrounded by complete darkness as I listened for sounds of movement and possible threats. My head hurt as my eyes slowly started getting used to the darkness. I need food and water, so bad, I said softly as I licked my lips, trying to avoid them getting even more chapped as I grew dehydrated. I slowed to a stop and removed my backpack, gently setting it down on the ground as I opened it up. Do I said to myself as I sifted through scraps and empty bottles of almond water. Fucking nothing, I said with a sigh as I put the flashlight back inside the backpack, knowing it was too dangerous to use it here. I need to get out of here, I said as I zipped up the backpack and got to my feet. I slung the bag over my shoulder, the fresh wound having gone completely numb as the burns and aches from bacteria from the entity steadily killed the nerves in that area of my arm. I looked around before continuing to walk slowly through the darkness, gathering my thoughts as I listened for entities. This place is crazy, I said to myself as I stared into the blanket of shadows in front of me. It's like everything in this place is designed to kill whoever comes here. It's not like you can leave, either. I don't know how long I've been here, but it has definitely been at least 48 hours by now, maybe even more, I said as I talked to myself, surrounded by death and darkness as the symptoms of isolation enveloped me. There's so much stuff here, death rats, party dudes, creepy figures in the shadows, those smiler thingies, that weird rod creature with the camera head, those giant moths and those weird hounds. It all just wants to kill you, I said as hundreds of memories and flashbacks of everything I had been through so far flooded my mind. But there's good stuff, too, some of it at least. All of these levels, I guess, are so cool and mysterious. They all have so much to explore and do, and even though most of the ones I've been in tried or successfully killed me, I said as a flashback of level fun, pipe dreams, and the very first level I started in hit me like a train. I looked around, realizing I had zoned out as I saw I was still surrounded by complete darkness. This level, for example, I said as I began to walk forwards again. There's so many areas to explore and so much cool stuff to look at, but it's almost always trying to kill me. It's all different stuff, too. It's never the same, I said as I remembered the 3 different types of stations I had experienced so far. The level seems massive, though, especially these tunnels, I said quietly as I stared ahead, walking in silence for a moment as my body grew more and more fatigued. There has to be a way out, though. Every level I've been to had a way out, I said as I began looking around, struggling to see in the darkness that surrounded me. If this level is like, I don't know, a giant series of train tunnels and underground stations, maybe the way out of here is up. Or maybe there's a special tunnel or door that you go through to escape, I said as I began to drown in my thoughts. Once I reach the end of this tunnel, I'll find out what my options are, I said as I maintained my calm and cautious walk through the shadows. I know there are stations in this place, I said as I broke the minute-long pause of silence. Maybe one of them leads to the surface. I swallowed. A glimmer of hope rose in the far corners of my mind as the ideas that the stations held my way out of this place surfaced immediately. I need to get to the stations. These tunnels are just full of death, I said as I began to run. My backpack bounced off of my butt as my legs pumped furiously, my heart pounding in my chest as my lungs began to burn again. I was pretty out of shape. The sounds of snarling echoed down the tunnel as I realized I wasn't alone anymore. The outlines of 2 hounds appeared to my left as I ran past them. It's always something, I muttered as I began to run as fast as I could. The 2 hounds quickly followed behind me as I sprinted down the tunnels through the dark. My chest burned as my head spun, my eyes struggling to adjust as the darkness became a blur. The sounds of trains filled the tunnels as my feet slapped the concrete, the hounds snarling as they chased their current victim. I jumped over the tracks, my heel clipping the edge of the rail as I stumbled forwards. I kicked off the ground and regained my balance as the 2 hounds behind me slowed, struggling to run over the rails as they pursued their prey. I have to get out of this tunnel, I cried as the hounds snarled and barked behind me. The faint sounds of whispering filled the air around me as the hounds closed the gap between them and their prey. I glanced behind me to see the 2 hounds were quickly gaining. They're too fast, I cried as I darted back over the rails. The hounds snarled as they leapt at my feet, leaping over the track, barely avoiding getting stuck again as they grew more frustrated with their prey. They're getting smarter, I realized as I said as I realized the severity of the current situation. The hounds snarled angrily as I spotted something in the distance. A faint yellow glow shined through the window of a faraway door. Oh, fuck. I need to get to that door, I said confidently as I began running as fast as I possibly could. The door began to grow closer as the sounds of the pack of hounds behind me grew louder. I glanced over my shoulder to see a third hound had joined the chase, running faster than the other two. How many of these weird dogs are there down here? I cried as the sounds of howls and barks echoed through the tunnel into the darkness. My lungs burned as the backpack bounced on my back, digging into my spine as I furiously pumped my legs. Pain shot through my thighs. One of the hounds sunk its teeth deep into my calf. What? Pain shot through my thighs. One of the hounds sunk its teeth deep into my leg. I glanced behind me to see they had closed the gap and were charging at me on all sides. Get off! I cried as the second hound dug its claws into my right arm. I screamed in pain before spinning a full 360 degrees, causing the hounds to dart outwards as they avoided what appeared to be an attack. I took the chance and began sprinting through the opening in the pack of... it's 7 minutes before stuttering. Goddamn. I took the chance and began sprinting through the opening in the pack of snarling, hungry hounds. The hounds barked loudly, the sounds of their cries traveling down the tunnel as the pack of three began pursuing close behind once more. The door is right there, I cried as a set of double steel doors came into view. I glanced behind me to see the hounds had begun gaining on me once again, growing closer by the second. I hesitated before stopping in my tracks, facing the hounds directly. They snarled with excitement as their prey finally stopped. I stared at what looked like to be the leader directly in the eyes as I let out an ear-splitting scream, the shriek exploding through my throat as it became amplifying. That should say amplified. You know what? I'm going to fix that while I'm reading it. As it became amplified with the echoes of the tunnel. The hounds froze, scrambling backwards as a deafeningly loud sound shocked them to their core. I jumped forwards, causing two of the hounds to dart back, running into the darkness. The leader of the pack stayed, standing its ground. I maintained eye contact before whipping around, sprinting for the door. The lead hound growled before barking loudly, telling the other two that ran away to initiate the hunt again as it began charging after me. Leave me alone! I screamed as I glanced behind me. The two hounds that had run away began emerging from the darkness, the outlines of the creatures' bodies growing bolder through the shadows. My chest heaved as I closed in on the door. The solid steel wall with a push mechanism and solid glass window laid only a few 20 feet away. The lead hound snarled angrily before making a terrifying bark that sounded like a human being killed mixed with the dog's cries of pain. I glanced behind me to see the lead hound changing direction, taking a path that would cut in front of mine. Fucking hell. I have to lose these things, I said as I turned around, dodging the other two hounds as they skidded to a stop, digging their clawed feet into the concrete as they changed the direction almost immediately. My head spun as my body grew more tired than before, my legs beginning to hurt as they grew weaker and sore. I darted left before turning 90 degrees, facing the two hounds again as the lead hound charged directly at me from the only way around the two others. I have to charge through them, I choked as I watched the two hounds charge towards me from my left, while the leader of the pack charged my right. I hesitated before sprinting at full speed at the gap between the leader and its servants, dodging razor-sharp teeth and claws as the hounds snarled angrily. The leader growled before perfectly arcing the corner, maintaining its speed as it charged again. I kicked my legs, glancing behind me as the leader of the pack closed in on me. Fuck you! I cried as I slowed down, taking my backpack from my back as I swung it as hard as I could at the lead hound's head. The leather bag connected with the hound's neck with a crunch, sending it crashing into the concrete with a sickening thud. Its body rolling to a stop near the tracks as I turned to face forwards, leaving the lead hound limp on the rails behind me. I knew it wasn't going to stay unconscious for long. The other two aren't going to be too happy about that, I said to myself as I quickly approached a set of metal doors. I glanced behind me, looking for the other two hounds as they slowed down, stopping in front of the set of steel doors. The bright, warm light coming through the windows caused my vision to blur as I turned back around and quickly made my way through the doors, shutting them behind me. The sounds of the lock clicking shut echoed through the warmly lit hallway I was in. Where did the other two I was cut off as the glass window on the door behind me exploded, shattering as glass shards flew out from the window frame. I screamed and turned around, adrenaline shooting through my blood as one of the hounds clawed its way through the now broken window. It snarled and growled, gnashing its teeth angrily as it began to squeeze its way through. The door shook violently as the second one rammed into it repeatedly, shaking the set of steel doors as a visible indent began to appear. "They're getting through?" I choked as the hound crawling through the window began clawing at the door, its body halfway through the small rectangle that once held a pane of glass. I had no idea how this thing was getting through. The second hound howled as it rammed into the door again, this time bending the lock as the door strained to remain in the frame. "I have to leave right now," I said as I snapped out of it. I adjusted my backpack before turning around, sprinting down the warmly lit tunnel as the pale white tile walls became a blur. The hounds howled and barked angrily as the doors kept them at bay. I glanced behind me as the doors burst open, metal shrapnel exploding outwards as the two hounds burst through the doorway and began charging down the hall. "They don't stop!" I cried as I began running as fast as I could. Sorry, I had to take a breath. A set of double doors laid at the end of the hallway, a set of wooden boards nailed over the small, square windows preventing any visibility as to what was beyond those doors. 2 other hallways branched off in both directions, providing 2 more hallways to run down. The sounds of snarls and barks echoed off the walls as the 2 hounds pursued the one who killed a member of their pack. I didn't know I killed it, though. I just felt it was unconscious. They believed so, though. I glanced behind me to see the hounds quickly gaining on me, their eyes locked on me with a thirst for my flesh. "They want me dead. They aren't going to stop or die until they do so." Sorry. "They want me dead. They aren't going to stop until I die or they do." Damn, I can't read. I'm sorry. I'm reading that correctly. I'm trying my best. I don't want to use AI to read this shit, so... "They want me dead. They aren't going to stop until they die or I do," I said as feelings of paranoia and dread began to set in. The hounds continued to gain on me as their thirst for the kill gave them the strength they needed to continue the chase. "I have to lose them," I said sternly as I observed my surroundings while I ran. The walls began to show mold and rot as the air grew thicker. "I'm entering a new area. Maybe I can lose them in one of these hallways," I said as I glanced behind me. The hounds had slowed down a bit, beginning to show signs of fear for something up ahead. "I guess they just don't want to go down this way," I said as feelings of hope crushed any sense of caution or paranoia I had left. That should say or, not of. I'm going to fix that because I'm reading this in real time and this is the audio revision. So blah, 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 blah. I'm going to shut up now. I slowed to a stop and watched as the hounds whimpered and growled in my direction. "Not so powerful now, are you?" I cried as I watched the hounds cry out in fear, seeming to wail in anguish and pain as they turned around and ran back down the hallway. I smiled to myself and turned to face the doors up ahead. Well, I guess I lucked out. I slowly walked up to the door and tried to look through the rotting wooden boards that had been nailed over the window. If this is a train system level with underground metro type stuff, why would one of these doors be locked and boarded up? I said as I began to look around for something to remove the boards with. I glanced at the rotting wood for a second. You're not 5 feet tall, but you don't need to look up. I glanced at the rotting wood for a second before I hesitantly grabbed it with both hands, almost gagging at the rotting, decayed planks before... I really should stop doing these all in one go, bro. Almost gagging as the rotting, decayed planks pressed against my skin. "This has to be an exit if it's blocked off," I said as I slowly began pulling off each of the wooden planks with my bare hands. The stench of rotting logs and rusted metal filled my nose as I slowly unblocked the window unlocking mechanism. Damn, I want to play Minecraft Skyblock. I'm actually going to do that after this recording while the shit's uploading. I dropped the last wooden piece onto the ground and stared at the area with the window in awe. It's wrong! I'm going to just keep going with it at this point. It's not even worth it. I dropped the last wooden piece onto the ground and stared at the area within the window with awe. A massive brownish-orange colored train tunnel lay beyond the door, the warm orange lights giving off a feeling of relief and security. I hesitated, my mind telling me not to trust it before opening the door and walking into the biggest tunnel I'd found at the back ways. I'm not even going to say anything. Oh, yeah, Chapter 18 releases tomorrow, by the way. For the full compilation, literally the next second. Here you go.